Hello and good morning, Samantha. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
Absolutely fantastic. We got to start things off with a couple of things that so listeners can check in with what we're going to be talking about. First of all, so many people think that Napster changed everything on the internet, and your book says something else. It is such an eye opener.
Yeah, Napster was definitely a big one. But I think, a lot of the technologies that the adult industry developed are, kind of they did for what the rest of the internet is that Napster did for music. So yeah.
I mean, it's amazing because when I started getting into the pages of the book and everything like that, right away I'm going, oh my God. If sex would not have been on the internet, Napster would not have been possible. Because it opened up the door for so many things. It's like a Beatles moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people will be really shocked and surprised in a good way about how the adult industry and sex and sexuality online really paved the way for a lot of the ways we still use the internet today.
Yeah. One of the things that I wanted to kind of get the listener to check in with is that we never think of what a sex tech is. I mean, without that technology, where would we be?
Right. Yeah. Sex tech is a term that we've heard more and more in the past few years, and I think it encompasses too much at this point. So it's fair to kind of be like, what are we talking about? We're talking about sex tech, but I think at this point, and at least in the context of this book and its history, we're talking about the ways that sexuality and technology have kind of grown up hand in hand, and they've been built together, and without one another it would be hard to kind of see where we'd be today. I mean, I can't even imagine. After writing this book, it was more than I even expected after researching and writing this. So I was surprised too.
I was going to ask you how you are inside the heart and soul, because I mean, when you dig in this deep and you start seeing, the wizard behind the curtain, it's like, why I'm not going to be the same again. It's like somebody who comes to visit me in a radio station and they see what it's really all about. They don't listen to it the same anymore.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it definitely, writing about anything and reporting about anything very closely changes your view of it. I think for me, I was very much not in this world and not exposed to a lot of the stuff that, I write about until just when I started really digging into it deeply and getting to know the people who work in these industries and kind of are the ones who are making the content and making the technology. I think it's been the biggest thing where, it's like, okay, I really understand now how, what you're doing is changing the way that we exist on the internet. So yeah, I mean, I also, I'm looking at Pornhub every day, which is probably not something most people do in their normal job.
What led you down that path? Because I mean, you were called to this. I can see it in your paragraphs that you're definitely a storyteller, but you're also identifying things that we should know.
Yeah. I've been a technology reporter for years, and I've been a journalist for 10 years. And just in the last 5 or so, I've been writing about the adult industry and sexuality and gender and things like that. And I think just as a tech journalist, I think it's so important to kind of look at these spaces as a peek into what is going to happen to the rest of us. We talk about what's going on with like Twitter and Facebook and all of these things, and a lot of what's happening in the mainstream has already happened or is happening to people who are on the margins. These platforms and these technologies get tested out or developed or pioneered by sex workers first a lot of the time. So being able to have that kind of ground floor view where it's happening is such an advantage to the rest of my tech reporting going forward. So I consider myself lucky. I feel like I'm getting, like you said, like to look behind the curtain a little bit, be able to see these kind of things happen.
One of the things that I identify with is that these are just regular people who happen to have a job, who happen to do this, to create it, and to have it, have that vision that's not necessarily here, but very long term up the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think most people who got into this early on, who were, just hobbyists, and they were like, okay, it would be fun. Wouldn't it be cool to kind of put our Polaroids up on a bulletin board system? Mm-hmm. And, next thing you know, they're developing these huge websites and organizations where they're selling, lots of different people's content with their permission, of course, but like just the ways that it can kind of expand from there, like you said, like the individual person just turning into like these big wide view type phenomenons. Like, we talk about like Pornhub and OnlyFans and these things. I mean, they started somewhere with someone with an idea. So Yeah.
I was always that guy back. Well, first of all, you know, the internet came into my career in probably at the early part of the 1990s, and so when these porn sites started coming up and preachers and everybody were talking about it, all I honestly thought about was, man, this is the government's way of weakening the men of this nation. Make it free, make it, and I've always thought that, but then now in reading your book, no, there's a lot going on here, and it changes the way that we live our lives every day.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm so glad to hear that that's kind of like a perspective opening kind of experience to read these kind of things. I think a lot of people will be surprised at, reading about how, sexuality and expression of it through the internet and otherwise is a strong thing. It doesn't have to be, like, oh, aren't you like gross in your basement watching porn? No, it's something that you can kind of enjoy and not feel guilty about. And in fact, telling people that you should feel guilty and, trying to control what people do, I think is maybe the weaker side of things. It's, you're kind of trying to dictate what people enjoy, which I think, if it's harmless and it's not hurting anyone, like, why not?
Yeah, exactly.
That's my view of it anyway.
So the Zoom boom, I mean, that right there had to be a life changer as well, where everybody all of a sudden, was Zooming, and now you can have physical conversations one-on-one.
Yeah. Yeah, I think during the pandemic especially, a lot of people turned to Zoom and webcams and things like that. And we have, the early webcam girls to thank for that from like the 90s, early 2000s, who were setting up webcams and pioneering the technologies that made it, not just like your little physical webcam, but, being able to display that in a fast, reliable, stable way was really pioneered by people who were trying to develop webcam technology for sex. And then you have, during this kind of boom in the last few years, you have cam sites are exploding. Things like OnlyFans are exploding because people needed a way to work from home and to be able to access a livelihood from, a place where they could control it and not put themselves at risk. So, yeah, I think you're totally right that it's just been this like huge boom in the way that we communicate even. That's, of course, translated also into how we communicate about sex.
So, like, one of the things that I've taken note of over the past year or so is the fact that how the metaverse is really getting involved with this, and those that have become numb because of porn and things like that. What they, like what I think I'm trying to remember what the commercial was. It says you can be anywhere with anyone, know your own fetish, and you'll be done in 15 seconds. I'm going, what the hell is this all about? And it's like that's got to be changing the way it is too. The metaverse and that there it is once again on those sites.
Yeah, definitely. I think the metaverse will be the most interesting kind of way forward with where we see sexuality online traveling because, with that, like you said, like you can be anyone. You can express yourself in any way you want. And also in this very real-time expressive way where you're interacting with someone in the moment. I think that'll be a really interesting way. And this is already happening, in more of the underground type of ways where people are already doing wild stuff in the metaverse. But I think it'll become more mainstream just as the technology gets better and better. Yeah,
and before we know it, it'll be that one thing that we did 2 years ago. So, it's like, where are we growing?
Yeah, it'll be blasé, and in 2 years it'll be, oh yeah, we're in the metaverse.
So where can people go to find out more about you, Samantha, and to really dig deep into this? Because I think that the book is a conversation starter. It's an eye-opener, but I think people are going to want more and more and more of stories like this.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, that's so nice to hear. I'm on Twitter. It's probably the best way to follow my day-to-day journalism and also about the book. I'm at Sam Lee Cole on Twitter. Yeah, and you can find the book wherever books are sold. Yeah, I'm just so excited for it to get out into the world today and for people to get their hands on it and hear what they think about it.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, please come back to this show anytime in the future, Samantha. The door is always going to be open for you.
Thank you so much. This was so lovely.
Will you be brilliant today, okay?
Thank you. I appreciate it.